So, in today's episode, we wanted to kind of talk about something that we both have felt. And it's kind of just this fight, I guess, between being intentional and living on purpose and being invested in all the decisions that you're making. But how can you do that without just like completely burning out in our current, the current life that we're living in? And this whole topic came up because Val and I text each other every day, and we are always sending these funny or ridiculous memes back and forth. And I found this one on Facebook or Instagram. I can't remember, but it said, "This year has been so ridiculous and weird that I don't have the energy to be surprised anymore. A portal to another world could open up in my kitchen, and I'd be like, well, I guess this is just another thing I'm going to have to learn to live with."
Yeah.
And we were just we were just talking about it and how we both kind of are in that same headspace. It's like we've had to deal with so many changes and 180s and different situations, and things come up, and we're shut down and we're working from home, and it's just this constant state of adaptation, and like we're always having to be on guard for like the next thing. And so I think it's natural that we kind of just disengage, and we're like, okay, here's another thing that we have to deal with, and just go with the flow. It's like a psychological protection mechanism.
Yeah.
But the topic of today's conversation came up because I posed the question to Val, like, how can we stay engaged and continue to make intentional decisions with our life, but not put ourselves in a situation where we have the potential to have like psychological harm just because there is too much stuff that we need to adapt to, and like our brain can't handle it.
Mhm.
So, Val, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because I think that there is a vast majority of people out there who feel this way to some degree, and we need help. Girl, help us.
Yes. um, as you probably remember, when you sent me that meme, I sent you back about like 80,000 texts with tons of exclamation points. And I mean, I do that anyway, but in particular, this one really resonated with me because it's something that comes up in coaching all the time and something I've personally felt. And it is a difficult thing because I think we expect that we can function at the same level that we were pre-pandemic, and just the reality is no, like things are changing all the time. I'm spending significant amounts of time doom scrolling and spending
Mm-hmm.
too much time reading all the craziness that's happening. And even if we're semi outside of a pandemic, I don't even want to say that, but we still have the lasting effect of our worlds have been completely shaken in the last 2+ years. So I think, the first place to start is to give yourself some grace and not stress about it, because I think that adding the stress on top of everything else it just essentially will steamroll you and just force you to disengage, because you just can't keep up that level of stress. And I think just recognizing that everyone's going through it, and that you can't have the same standards that you did pre-pandemic.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, and I think also like understanding that when your sort of daily routine has been so shaken up, and things like, homeschooling or working from home, or even if you're back in the office and everything, it still is a different world. And I think just recognizing that your routine used to be your anchor point, and now you can't really count on it. So you are like constantly adapting. And I know that the first week that I was working from home, when the pandemic first started, I knew like immediately that I had to set some ground rules for myself, because I knew that I would just flounder with that much, not necessarily freedom, but just that much uncertainty. And so, I
Mm-hmm.
set some like very minor habits that I knew that I needed to like, when I first woke up in the morning, I showered and got dressed and made sure I was like, in some way just anchored by that particular activity. So there's some little things we can talk about, but I think the first one is absolutely to just give yourself some grace and forgive yourself if you have a little bit of brain fog or if you are forgetting things. I feel like I hear that from every single one of my clients. Like, I just can't
Mm-hmm.
remember anything anymore. And just knowing that that's a part of just your brain being so overwhelmed and just having to filter all these new things in your life and things that are unknown and having to kind of adapt to that. So I don't know if you have
Yeah.
any thoughts on that too,
Yeah,
or.
I mean, it definitely resonates a lot with me because I'm the kind of person who, expects me to be operating at
Mm,
peak performance all the time. And so it's, I think really hard for people who struggle with perfectionism and people
mm-hmm,
pleasing to take a step back and be like, okay, I can't do everything. And my brain is in overload right now. It's dealing with this, you know, for lack of a better term, kind of a traumatic situation. Like we're dealing with stuff that we've never had to deal with before. And it takes up
mm-hmm,
so much brain power for us. It's really emotional and psychologically taxing. And there's just so much uncertainty that I think it really kind of makes us predisposed to going into these mental tailspins. And so, yeah, I love the point, number one is just give yourself grace. Like, don't expect that you're going to be nearly as functional as you were under normal circumstances before 2020.
yeah.
And just rest in the knowledge that we're all in the same struggle to
Yeah.
varying degrees. So, it's not just you, it's all of us.
Yeah. And I think it's a great opportunity to, I mean, it's hard to find positives in a lot of things, but I think it's a good opportunity to reevaluate who we are as a culture. The fact that we were operating at such a high level that we just were totally thrown off our feet when something like this
Mm-hmm.
happened. And I think it's just, like I said, a great opportunity to just look at our lifestyle and our culture and what kind of things we prioritize, just from, just seeing that we're all, like I said, thrown off. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I think another thing is that so many of us, I think, realized that we are operating in a really unsustainable
Mm-hmm.
way, but we don't know what it looks like or what it feels like to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I think so many of us had different circumstances that came up over the last couple of years that really brought to our attention how close to the end of the rope we were
Mm-hmm.
and how easy it was for one little thing to just push us over the edge mentally and emotionally. So, I think that is part of, the big cultural shift that we have going on around the workplace right now. It's, workers are realizing that we need to change the way that we're doing things in order for it to be sustainable and healthy for us in the long run. So, is there anything that we can do to kind of help ease us along as we kind of figure out I hate the term new normal, but
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to find our footing. How can we make that a little bit easier on us?
I think it goes back to, I think the reverse is like you don't want to languish either. Like, and so I think while you should forgive your current state, you can't just kind of go on to the other spectrum of just not doing anything. And I think the key is to set some micro habits that and routines that anchor your day. So, a morning routine and an evening routine. It's just a great way to eliminate some decision fatigue in your life. So, in the morning that this is what your morning is going to look like, and that this is what your evening is going to look like. And then the rest of the day can kind of just happen how it's going to happen, but you'll at least have that to kind of anchor you. And I think it also gives you a sense of purpose. And, like I said, when I first started working from home, I mean, my purpose may be making a cup of coffee and taking a shower, but at least I've like accomplished something instead of just kind of languishing throughout the day. So I think that's huge. And then I would say the next step is setting some micro goals for yourself. And I think it's really important not to focus on, I mean, always to have long term goals, but not necessarily to focus on the super long term because you don't know what's going to change. And it's very difficult to get motivated by that. So, like, setting some short term goals for yourself, like, you know, as probably remember at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was making sourdough and learning a new language. And I think that stuff is amazing. Like it does give you a sense of purpose. And so I think those things are, really helpful. And even now that we're not necessarily in lockdown, like you still having those like little daily habits are really, really helpful, and little like goals that you have each day keep you motivated and keep you moving forward. And, as I said, the routines kind of keep you anchored as well.
Mm, yeah, that's a good point. I'm a big list person. And so
Yes.
I find that having a set of, you know, big goals for my day,
Mm-hmm.
along with my to-do list of everything, it really helps me to focus on what the most important things are and streamlines my mental process to a point where it feels easier, I guess, for me to
Mm-hmm.
kind of get started and get that daily momentum.
Yeah, I love the 3 priority list, which I just, every day it's like the 3 things that I need to do to feel that I've accomplished something. And as I don't know, as the to-do list culture where our to-do lists are multiple notebooks as opposed to just a one-page thing, that is a really freeing concept of what are my priorities, and or setting some sort of intention for the day. It's much more achievable. It allows you to prioritize. You can say no to more items that aren't particularly priority for you. And it just kind of gives you, like I said, that freedom to just be able to focus on what's important for you that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
love that.
Something that I like to do is, I'm a big fan of intentions rather than
Mm-hmm.
resolutions. And so I always like to set an intention at the beginning of the year, which is usually one word or a short phrase that kind of guides my decisions throughout the course of that calendar
Mm-hmm.
year, with the end goal being like a certain feeling or
Mm-hmm.
place that I want my life to be in. It's not a goal that's like set in stone though, so it's kind of different in that way. But then what I do is I kind of break things up into quarterly goals and then monthly goals and then weekly goals, and then like I always try to put everything back to, is this serving my intention? And so
Mm-hmm.
I even go so far as to make my 3 things that I want to accomplish that day refer back to that intention that I have set. Is this going to bring me closer to my intention for the year or for the month or whatever it is for you. So that's a good little tip if you need
Mhm.
some structure, some ideas on how to kind of make that look more, concrete.
Yeah, and this might be a little bit more nebulous, but I think also that ties a little bit to core values and talking about what your core values are. It's a good exercise if you haven't done it before, but choosing 3 to 5 core values kind of works with your intention and allows you to prioritize what's the most important in your life and whether that lines up with your yearly intention or your
Mm-hmm.
monthly. So I definitely recommend doing that as well.
Yeah, totally. And like, how can we kind of use our core values to inform how we're living our life as opposed to, sticking close to that massive to-do list like we're so used to? What does that look like?
So I think with the core values, it is a way to make both small and big decisions in your life. And, for example, if freedom is your particular one of your core values and you have a very structured job and you have a very structured day and you've kind of forced yourself into this box of too much structure, you're not really going to thrive and it's not going to feel like a great fit for you. And so I think finding ways that you can maybe build in some more freedom into your day, or maybe this isn't the job for you if it's too structured, and being able to just use it as your own guiding principles. And because sometimes I think, particularly in the last 2 years, it's been so hard to make decisions. I just, in terms of like, we don't know what's happening in the world, we don't know what's going to change tomorrow. So having these are like your own little blueprint of, hey, this is what I want my life to look like. So I think it can really help, but it can also just be on smaller scale, your day to day activities, making sure that you're sticking with those
Mm.
priorities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And sorry, hold on. Cut. um
I've
have
just
we've
taken
kind
up.
of we've kind of talked about the productivity culture thing, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah. I
so.
mean, that was kind of like talking about the core values and intentions, not your
Yeah.
to-do list.
Didn't
Okay,
mean to throw the
so
core values in, but hey,
no,
whatever. Yeah,
I like where this conversation is going, to be
I do too.
honest.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to pick up with the positive interventions to boost resilience and then wrap it?
Yes. Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
great.
All righty.
All right.
Okay. So a little while ago, you talked about, having like a morning routine and an evening routine. Is there anything specific that you usually recommend to your clients to incorporate into that so that they can be set up to resist the effects of stress
Mm.
or overwhelm or burnout?
Yeah, I think that, positive psychology talks a lot about positive interventions, and there are activities that can help boost your happiness level, but it's not that happiness level that comes from like having a really good dinner kind of thing. It's a more lasting feeling of contentment. And I think that um, different activities, it's usually like a different daily activity, can help to lead to more resilience. So if you're boosting your happiness baseline, you're going to be more resilient to changes in the world. And the best way to accomplish that is to come up with 3 to 5 activities that you do, generally speaking, on a daily basis that can lead to just a little boost in your happiness level. And so, just to back up a little bit, genetics kind of plays a big role in your baseline happiness, but
Hmm.
it's about 50% of your
Oh, wow.
happiness. But you have the potential to boost your own happiness by 40%, and that's usually by day to day activities. And then the
Mm.
other 10% are things that we think are going to make us happy, but don't, like money or a different job or whatever, the sort of
Mhm.
external things. So, an example of a positive intervention would be starting a gratitude practice. And that can be just writing down three things that went well today. Or it can even be done. I prefer to do it with my partner and we just talk about it over dinner, like what went well for us today, because it's also a shared kind of community activity as opposed to just a
Mhm.
solitary one. But a gratitude practice has been shown to have one of the strongest effects on your day to day happiness. So, it's important because for you to spend some time exploring these positive interventions because different ones work more strongly for each individual. But developing some, you know, various positive activities into your day can ensure like a more resilient future. So it's definitely recommended that you practice them and see what works best for you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I also do a family gratitude
Mm-hmm.
practice, and I really have been trying to get my kids involved because they're both young. And so I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to instill this habit in them early so
Mm-hmm.
that as they get older, it's kind of just a natural way that they think. Like all of
Mm-hmm.
their neural pathways are wired to look for the positives in their life and be grateful for them. So we like to just go around the table and talk about
Yeah.
one thing that we're grateful for today. And it's really fun to hear what a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old are grateful for.
Yeah.
Um,
I was just
it's
thinking that
really
that would
it's
be
really cute.
adorable.
It's adorable and it's really funny.
Yeah.
So, I've also heard of having a jar that your family keeps,
Mm-hmm. I love that.
and whenever you do something that was really fun or have something that you're really grateful for, just any like really good thing that happens in your everyday life, you put it into the gratitude jar. And then it kind of makes a fun end of the year, like New Year's Eve activity for your families to go through your gratitude jar and reminisce on all the awesome things that happened in the past year.
That's such a like perfect example of a positive intervention too, because on top of that it combines gratitude with the element of having a shared activity with your family, and then it's also something to look forward to, and it also like prolongs the good feelings because you're not
Mm,
only just writing that slip at the time, but then you're rereading it at the end of the year. And also
yeah, that's a
traditions
good
can be
point.
really, yeah, really fun. So that's a really awesome way to do gratitude.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, I think that's something that we're going to start too in our family because
I
it
love
just
it.
sounds so nice, you know?
Yeah.
And we have a bunch of cookie jars in our house that we're not using because, they're gone before they can make it into the jar
Yeah.
anyway. So, an alternative use for your
Yes.
cookie jars, folks.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I think that this was a really good conversation and it really helped to kind of give us some concrete things that we can do so that we're rolling with the punches without completely feeling like we're just getting steamrolled by
Hmm.
life. And we're able to take some of that power back that we may have felt that we lost in the last couple of years and invest that power into doing things that are going to help us to live a happier and healthier, more positive and grateful life going forward. So, just to recap, the things that we can really focus on to not get steamrolled by life while still being flexible is to have grace with yourself, um,
Hmm.
know that you're not the only one who's not operating at peak capacity, and just, meet yourself where you're at. Create a buffer with some morning routines and evening routines, and just kind of systematize and operationalize, for lack of a better word, parts of your day to eliminate decision fatigue so that you can better cope with the twists and turns and curveballs that happen inevitably throughout every day. Lean out of productivity culture. Stop obsessing about your to-do list that's 5 miles long. Focus on just creating 3 things that you need to do in order to move you closer to your goals or your intentions. And it's really important to also just know what your core values are.
Mhm.
So if this is something that you as a listener think that you could benefit from having some clarity on, you can go to our website and download a worksheet that's going to walk you through how you can find what your core values are. That's really helpful. And the last one was just to start creating some positive interventions in your life that are going to help boost your resilience against stress and burnout. And one of the best positive interventions that you can do is start a gratitude practice of some sort, however it works best for you or your family. So that was super helpful and
Yeah.
really, really insightful. And I think it's so helpful for people to hear how you walk your own clients through this process. Um, but yeah, so go to the website, which is helloglowcoaching.com, and download that workbook for your core values so that you can get started on this today. And let's see, Val, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm just,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, we are so grateful that you have been here listening with us for this episode, and we hope that you will join us back next time. And in the meantime, live a bold, curious, and vibrant life. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.